Metabolic syndrome can cut your life expectancy by years, affecting everything from your heart health to aging. But the good news is there are ways to fight back. Hi, I'm Caroline. In this video, with the help of the Healthnews research team, we'll see how metabolic syndrome affects longevity and what you can do to improve your health. Stick around until the end, where we'll reveal a scientifically backed treatment option that targets the root causes of metabolic syndrome. Metabolic syndrome is a group of risk factors that significantly raise your chances of developing serious health conditions. According to the National Cholesterol Education Program's Adult Treatment Panel 3, you're considered to have metabolic syndrome if you meet at least 3 of these 5 criteria. First, abdominal obesity, with a waist circumference over 40 inches for men or 35 inches for women. Second, high blood pressure, over 130/85 millimeters of mercury. Third, elevated fasting blood glucose levels over 100 milligrams per deciliter. Fourth, high triglycerides over 150 milligrams per deciliter. And finally, low HDL cholesterol, under 40 milligrams per deciliter for men or 50 milligrams per deciliter for women. Metabolic syndrome is often called a silent killer because it can quietly disrupt your body without causing any noticeable symptoms, until over time, serious health problems arise. Scientific studies show that metabolic syndrome increases your risk of heart disease and early death significantly. Metabolic syndrome doesn't happen overnight. It's driven by several interconnected processes within the body. The first factor is insulin resistance. It is one of the primary drivers of metabolic syndrome. Here's how it works. When you eat, your body releases insulin to help your cells absorb glucose. But over time, especially if you have excess body fat, particularly around your abdomen, your cells become less responsive to insulin. To compensate, your pancreas works overtime, producing even more insulin to make cells absorb glucose and maintain normal blood sugar levels. Unfortunately, this only works for a while. Eventually, your cells stop responding to insulin altogether, or respond to it only partially, leading to consistently high blood sugar levels. This is when insulin resistance turns into a much bigger problem, elevating your risk for type 2 diabetes. And it doesn't stop there. The excess sugar in your bloodstream causes damage to blood vessels and tissues, leading to vascular complications and speeding up the aging process. Over time, the body can't keep up with the demand for insulin, and elevated blood sugar levels begin to do real damage, affecting your heart, kidneys, and other critical organs. This sets the stage for the development of various conditions we see stemming from metabolic syndrome, from diabetes to cardiovascular disease. Another key factor driving metabolic syndrome is chronic inflammation. When your body experiences stress, whether from elevated glucose levels or obesity, it triggers the release of pro-inflammatory cytokines like TNF-alpha and IL-6. The levels of these molecules are elevated in people with metabolic syndrome and lead to persistent low-grade inflammation throughout the body. The problem with chronic low-grade inflammation is that it may not be noticeable, but it accelerates aging at the cellular level. Prolonged inflammation damages tissues, impairs normal function, and contributes to the development of several chronic diseases. In individuals with metabolic syndrome, elevated levels of C-reactive protein serve as a marker for this ongoing inflammation. It's important to understand that CRP doesn't directly cause inflammation. It's simply a marker that indicates inflammation is happening. And when inflammation persists over time, it leads to oxidative damage, worsening insulin resistance and driving the progression of metabolic syndrome. Next, we have oxidative stress. It occurs when there's an imbalance between free radicals and antioxidants, which help neutralize these harmful molecules. Oxidative stress plays a major role in damaging DNA, proteins, and lipids. This leads to cellular dysfunction and even mitochondrial damage. Over time, the oxidative stress-caused damage accumulates and speeds up the aging process. This isn't about wrinkles or gray hair. It's about the cellular aging that affects your organs, reducing their ability to function properly. Mitochondrial dysfunction is a key consequence of this, impairing the energy production of your cells and impacting everything from your heart to your brain. The constant barrage of oxidative damage worsens certain health issues like hypertension, hypercholesterolemia, and insulin resistance, creating a vicious cycle that keeps feeding metabolic syndrome. Over time, this leads to the impairment of body functions and increases the risk of life-threatening diseases, including heart disease, stroke, and diabetes. When we talk about metabolic syndrome, one of the biggest contributors is excess body fat, particularly visceral fat, which is the fat that surrounds your organs. Unlike subcutaneous fat, which lies just under the surface, visceral fat is metabolically active. This means it releases various hormones and inflammatory molecules, such as cytokines like TNF-alpha and IL-6, which may disrupt the cellular ability to respond to insulin. Studies show that visceral fat accumulation is a much stronger predictor of metabolic syndrome than general obesity because of its close proximity to vital organs like the liver and pancreas. The more visceral fat you have, the higher your risk for developing insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes, and heart disease. But here's something surprising. Even if you're of normal weight, you can still have metabolic syndrome if you have excess visceral fat. This is what makes metabolic syndrome so tricky. Factors like high blood sugar, low HDL cholesterol, and elevated triglycerides can still be present, even in individuals who appear healthy. So it's not just about how much fat you have, but where it's located. Visceral fat is particularly dangerous because it is associated with inflammation, oxidative stress, and insulin resistance. Now let's talk about the major health consequences of metabolic syndrome, especially for your heart. Metabolic syndrome is strongly linked to cardiovascular disease, including coronary artery disease. In fact, people with metabolic syndrome are more than 2 to 3 times as likely to develop CAD compared to those without it. The connection between metabolic syndrome and heart disease stems from several factors, one of the biggest being dyslipidemia. When the amount of LDL particles carrying cholesterol increases in your bloodstream, they're able to infiltrate the walls of your arteries and trigger the formation of plaques. Over time, these plaques cause the arteries to stiffen and narrow. This process is called atherosclerosis. It restricts blood flow, reducing the supply of oxygen to critical organs like the heart and brain. As a result, atherosclerosis can lead to heart attacks, thrombosis, and strokes. But that's not all. High blood pressure, another hallmark of metabolic syndrome, adds to the problem by putting extra strain on the blood vessels. The constant elevated pressure damages the arterial walls, making them more susceptible to plaque buildup and increasing the risk of blockages. In addition to these factors, metabolic syndrome also causes endothelial dysfunction, which is a key player in the development of cardiovascular disease. The endothelium is the inner lining of your blood vessels, responsible for maintaining vessel functionality by regulating blood flow and preventing clot formation. In metabolic syndrome, inflammation and oxidative stress damage the endothelium, causing it to lose its function. This leads to a breakdown of blood vessel wall integrity, increasing the likelihood of adverse cardiovascular events. One of the most promising advancements in treating diabetes is the introduction of GLP-1 receptor agonists, like semaglutide. These drugs are a novel class of medications that also target multiple aspects of metabolic syndrome, offering a comprehensive approach to improving metabolic health. Here's how they work. GLP-1 agonists enhance insulin secretion in a glucose-dependent manner. This means they help your body produce insulin when it's most needed. These medications also suppress appetite and promote significant weight loss, which is crucial for addressing the obesity component of metabolic syndrome. Clinical trials have shown the remarkable efficacy of GLP-1 agonists in reducing cardiovascular risk. In one major trial involving over 17,000 participants, semaglutide reduced the incidence of major cardiovascular events such as heart attacks and strokes by 20% compared to placebo. This shows that even in individuals without diabetes, GLP-1 agonists can have profound effects on heart health by not only reducing weight, but also potentially improving blood vessel function and lowering inflammation. GLP-1 agonists may also play a role in promoting longevity by targeting the key drivers of metabolic syndrome, insulin resistance, inflammation, and obesity. They help to reverse some of the major factors that contribute to premature aging. The combination of weight loss, improved blood sugar control, and reduced cardiovascular risk offers a promising tool for increasing both lifespan and health span. If you found this video helpful, make sure to check out other videos on our Healthnews channel for more tips and insights on improving your health. Don't forget to subscribe and stay informed about the latest in health research.